17104.com. This is Zanetta Wingfield, and you're listening to The Voice 17104.com. The Voice 17104.com. Welcome to Did You Know? Podcast, your host, Richard Utley, dedicated to the African American viewers. The program is aimed to celebrate African American culture and deal with the real and relevant topics that impact the everyday lives of the African American community.
Right here.
Through frank and insightful dialogue with local and national influencers. Every day, there is another horrible, discouraging news story, directly or indirectly, impacting African Americans. But we need to look at the shining stars in the galaxy of Black America. It is time to tell our story.
Hello, and welcome to another Did You Know? Well, we got an exciting program this evening. Well, let me get started my normal little commentary. I told you in my last broadcast that I was going to start to bring some things up about history, because apparently nobody wants to tell our story, so I've come to the conclusion we have to tell our own story. So I'm going to give you a few assignments so that you can look it up, and then you will know. And some things I may say you may know, and some things I say you may not know, but then somebody may not know what I'm talking about. So each week I'm going to bring up some names, and all I want you to do research, or tell your grandkids, or tell some people about who these people are. I'm not going to give you the total history, but I'm going to give you an assignment to look them up. And I really have about 4. I'm going to bring about 4 each time. So the first one I'll say, it was in 1846, Dred Scott. I want you to look up what Dred Scott, because that's a very, very, very important name that all of us should know about. And I'm sure some of you have heard about the Dred Scott decision. So that's number 1. Okay, who's the other 3? Booker T. Washington. Well, who is he? Look it up. Find out who he is and tell people who Booker T. Washington is, because he played a very important role in our life. I'll throw a little sports person in there. Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson just had a birthday. Some of you will know who Jackie Robinson is, and some of you will not know who Jackie Robinson is, but you probably should know who Jackie Robinson is. One of my points that I've been dealing with sometimes, many of you celebrate, many of you go to these schools that at one point we couldn't go to. So you need to find out the history and the legacy of who was the trailblazers who were the first ones to went to your school. You need to find out. Alabama ain't always had Black folks. So you need to find out when they started having people of color. It's good to know. And the 4th one is Percy Julian. Now you probably say, who's Percy Julian? This is a check it out. What did he do? I will say this, he's a scientist. And he was very helpful in some of the things that we have to deal with, like glaucoma. And all of you know when you look at it and you think about tuberculosis, when you think about diabetes, they always tell you that it affects your eyes and stuff. The other 2 things I'm going to talk to you about, I keep talking about guns. I keep talking about death. Now just think about this. You mean to tell me some people can't go to a birthday party, a sweet 16 birthday party in Alabama, and there was a mass shooting? 4 people were killed. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, we got to do a better job of that. We got to do a better job. And then I'd hate to bring this up, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Here's a group of people decide to go to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania to have a good time. And what happened there? There was a shooting. 2 ladies were wounded. They didn't die, but they were there having a good time. Apparently, one was sitting on a bench and another was standing somewhere else. Why put us in that kind of situation? We have to stop that. We really do. You know, there's been about 162 mass shootings in 2023. There have been it's only been about 108 days. And the last thing I'm going to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, we got some major problems in this country. A young man went to the wrong house, rang the wrong doorbell, and he was shot in the head and in the arm. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. We got to do a better job. And this happened in Kansas City, Missouri. And I'm sure many of you have already heard about it. Come on. He was going to pick up his brother. He was on the wrong block and got shot. Which tells you that you got to be careful where you're going. You got to be careful what you're doing, because that's very important. So I just want us to understand that we need to keep focus on our lives and our communities, and we should also stop tolerating gun violence in our communities. It's not fair. It's not fair for people to not sit on the porch when it's a warm day. It's not fair for some people to go to a 16th birthday and you go there to have a good time and people get killed. People go to a university function and somebody get wounded. We want to have a good time. We want to enjoy life. So I hope that you guys think about what's going on in our communities, because I keep telling you, we have to be in control of our communities, and we have to be the ones that say enough is enough. Well, what is my program today? I have a wonderful program today, and I have a great individual on, and I'm going to let him tell his story. But you know that a critical part about this young man that I'm bringing on, I got to know him because I sit on a mentoring program through federal court system, which means when people are trying to come out, I try to mentor them. They call me and I talk to them and we ask questions and try to guide them, just be a support. And I had the pleasure of having this young man under me. And I want to say that I'm very proud of him because I'm going to let him tell you his story today. And one thing I know it's going to do, it's going to give you hope and going to give you vision, because he could have quit, but he didn't quit. So I'm going to let Eric come on. Hi, Eric. How are you?
Hey, how are you? How are you, Mr. Utley?
Good.
Yeah.
I'm going to have you tell your story, but I'm going to put it in perspective. Eric is 49 years old. Okay, he went to prison at 27. He served 18 and a half years
I did.
in prison, but he's out. And wait till he tells you the things that he's doing, because when he got sentenced, we all know about the judicial system, and we all know about sentencing and drugs and things of that nature. And we all know that when they talked about war on drugs, no one talked about how we got the drugs, but no one talked about that. And he got caught up in that. And so when he got caught up in the whole drug thing, and he'll tell you about it, the issue is, what was his sentence? He got sentenced to life. You heard me, life in prison. But he only served 18 and a half years. And of course, you know the disparity of the sentencing and whatever. He's out. But He's going to tell you all about it. He's going to tell you who he is and why we should be proud of him. But if nothing else, he should give you hope. Whoever you're out there, he should give you hope. So Eric, please tell your story.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Utley. And it's a pleasure to be on your show, coming from where I came from, and you being my mentor. It was a pleasure to have you as my mentor. Yeah, because you stood up for me in some tough times. So I appreciate that. Yeah, so my story begins, I guess, from the incarceration point. Uh, I was incarcerated for a one count conspiracy for selling 50 grams or more crack. And given the federal sentencing process, I was given life. Now, at the time I was in Washington, D.C., a group of guys who I was selling drugs to had got busted on their own. They were in prison for, I want to say, one of them was in prison for 2.5 years before the DEA came to him and said, "Hey, do you know this guy? Would you like to testify against this guy? What can you say about him that we can prove in court?" So one of the guys, he came and said that, all the drugs that he sold and he was locked up for, that I gave him. And just based on that evidence alone, with no other phone taps, wiretaps, controlled drug buys, no video, no audio, no pictures of me and these guys together, no uh, no financial records being, all the stuff they show in the movies that they do, none of that happened. It's just these guys wanted to get out of prison. They testified against me and to what I was doing at the time. And I definitely did not think that I was going to serve a life sentence. So initially, when I was arrested and indicted, it said 50 grams or more crack. So I'm thinking, 50 grams, that's not even 2 ounces, not really looking at a whole lot of time. I did not know about this federal sentencing process, which is once the jury finds you guilty for conspiracy. And Mr. Utley, unless you're in a coma, you're going to get found guilty for conspiracy, right? We just seen some of people in the last administration or associated with the last administration go to prison for conspiracy, right? So I know, you can have whoever you want as a lawyer, but you're not going to, beat the federal, statute for conspiracy. So anyway, so once you get found guilty for conspiracy, then you go to sentencing, and this is when the real trial starts. So they don't use the same standard of proof as reasonable doubt. They use the standard of proof used by in civil cases. It's called preponderance of the evidence, which translates to mean exactly that. It's more likely than that you committed these crimes that you weren't indicted for or tried for. And in my specific case, my sentence went from between 12 to 15 years to life based on testimony given by the people that they paid through time cuts and money and favor to testify against me so they could get out of prison. And what they testified to extra was that our conspiracy wasn't 50 grams or more. It was 205 kilos. That also that it was that during the course of the conspiracy, I had a handgun. Then because I testified that I didn't sell crack cocaine, I sell powder cocaine, right? Well, who does that? Who gets on the stand and says, I'm guilty, right? But I'm not selling crack. I got another charge saying that, with another charge of sentencing, not indicted for another charge, but the judge said that it was more likely than that I tried to obstruct justice by testifying to the truth that I sold powder cocaine. At the time, what was significant about powder and crack was that for 1 gram of crack, it was equal to 100 grams of powder. So my sentence was 100 times, the punishment was 100 times more severe because of crack. And, I was trying to get under that severity by actually telling the truth. And I was still sentenced to a life sentence and life in the feds since 1984 under the SRA, the Sentencing Reform Act. They decided to abolish parole. Life and sentence is that you die in prison. There's no parole. So now that's me going to prison. Um, Once I got to prison, Mr. Utley, I had to make a decision. You know, a lot of guys, uh, didn't. I felt like, I come from, both my parents were in the church. I come from a middle class family, educated, and both of them worked for the federal government. My dad worked for the State Department for a period of time, and so I felt like, whatever decisions that get that I made, that landed me in the United States Penitentiary in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, which I've seen in movies like Al Capone and John Gotti. I see all these guys. I'm like, wow, how am I here? Whatever decisions I made to get to that point in my life were the wrong decisions, and I made that decision on my own. I felt like, even though at that point I didn't have any legal recourse to come home, what I did decide to do was to change the way I made my decisions. So inside Lewisburg Penitentiary, they had a program called the Code Program, and it was, what got me was a guy gave me a pamphlet, and it was like, oh, it's a moral recognition, moral recognition. I'm like, moral recognition, like, what is that? So once I read the pamphlet, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go in here, because what else do I got to do, right? I'm not gonna sit around here all day and sports bet and get into the things that you can get into in prison. That's going to keep me in prison. If anything, I should give at least a chance. Give myself a chance to one day be released, and not just for myself, but just for my family and my children. I have 2 children. I had 3 grandchildren now, but and just make an effort for them, because a lot of them felt that my prior decisions were just based on what, I didn't include them, and I was being selfish. So I said, well, this is a chance to prove that, help myself, and at the same time show my family at least I'm trying while I'm in prison. And that program helped me. It was a inpatient program. They take you out of your cell block, put you into another cell block, and you live differently than the rest of the prison population. And what was significant about me being in there is that I had a life sentence, and I think I was the only one in there that had like straight life. Like, nobody else in there had a life sentence. And the lady usually didn't take people in the program that had a life sentence, but once I spoke to her during the interview, she was like, "Wow, what I mean? I would like to, see how this looks, with you being in the program." But once I went through the program, as I was going through the program, I started kind of attracting different people, instead of the wrong people, I guess, in prison. And at the time, there was just the Bush administration had just did away with the Pell Grant program. And since I'm a high school graduate, did some college, there's no, usually programs in prisons are usually generated around, especially educational programs, are generated around, trade or somebody trying to, get their GED. And after that, you have to go to college on your own without the assistance or funds of, you're not making any money. I think I made $35 a month in prison. So, you have to pay for prison, you have to pay for college from prison, and the Pell Grant program actually helped you. Well, the Bush administration thought it was a good idea to do away with the Pell Grant program. The sentiment was that, why give a prisoner, a college education? So, even though statistically it shows that it cuts down on recidivism, like 2%, recidivism is like 2%, like, but anyway, but I got the, one of the actual purveyors, one of the professors that was coming to the prison, actually took a liking to me and told me to talk to one of the guys that he had groomed. and that passed the bar but wasn't in the bar. Passed the bar exam but wasn't admitted to a bar because he was doing life in prison as well, right? So he had already built the curriculum, and he I mean, like, for about a year, he was like, man, you need to take this, you need to learn about the law, you got life, you need to get out of prison. And I knew it as a necessity, but I was thinking, like, I'm not a lawyer, I don't think that's for me, but ultimately, I did take the curriculum that he did, which was the program that he offered. And it wasn't sponsored by the prison. It was something he did all and totally entirely on his own. And then from him teaching me on the criminal rules of evidence, criminal rules of procedure, what I'm saying, appellate procedure, habeas procedure, and so on and so forth. I was given cases to. He gave me cases because he was a resident attorney inside the prison. He gave me a case to work on, and in the first case that I ever did, I got the guy out of prison. So I was thinking, like, man, at first I was like, I don't think I could do this. And then the guy that I helped, I was like, I don't think he's going to get out. This dude right here is guilty, right? And I got him out. So, from that, I began teaching his curriculum, and I taught it for 8 years at USP Lewisburg. During those 8 years, I always tell people, like, and I think about Malcolm Gladwell. Is that the guy that did Outliers or Outliers? That 10,000 hours of studying. I used to study law every day, all day, pretty much. And I think I might have hit my 10,000 hours because one day I was sitting in the law library, and everything just seemed, open up the law books that I usually read, and everything just seemed different. Like, I saw it differently. I understood it differently. I became consumed with that, understanding where law came from. I started reading a lot of philosophy, reading books on logic, and it became my way of life in prison for a long time. And I believe, Mr. Utley, that actually saved me, because prison is prison. I was housed in the United States Penitentiary of Lewisburg, and it was a real serious place to be. Very volatile, very violent. It's very easy for you to mind your business, and for you to still get into something. Somebody's always going to test you. Somebody's always going to try you, no matter how you walk. So I was blessed, and because I became one of the guys that help people get out of prison, I was kind of like, they was like, you better have a good reason to mess with this guy, right? Because he's helping all of us get out. So I kept filing. In my case, couldn't get out. And then fast forwarding to the Obama administration, Obama offered commutation of people's sentences, right? Because of the crack. He tried to change the crack laws. He did, but they didn't make it retroactive. So he said, well, for us on the ground, we knew what that meant. If you're going to do that, then we're going to start, giving commuting guys sentences, and giving people clemency. So we went through the whole clemency process. I took my family through the clemency process, which is a lot of work. A good attorney from out of New York helped me, and I had a buddy who actually worked in the White House on drug policy in that section, and he was an ex-convict, and Obama picked two people, right? And he was one of them, and he had wrote a blog that was on the White House website, and that got placed on the White House website that mentioned my name, like, he was, so we all thought I was going to get, commuted, my sentence commuted. And then when it got denied commutation, they give you no reason. They just denied my commutation sentence. I was kind of dejected. Um, and wow, when this happened, Trump Trump became the president, right? And then he put Jeff Sessions as the attorney general. And Jeff Sessions is the reason why Obama's first FSA, which is the Fair Sentencing Act, not the First Step Act, got rejected for retroactivity. So I'm like, you putting this guy in here, Jeff Sessions, and this guy's ridiculous, right? So he's a lock him up, throw away the key for minorities. He's a villain, right? So, and when he finally got Jeff Sessions out of position and he started advocating for the First Step Act, and when him and I think the Republican, whatever guy's name is, this guy, I think it's a McConnell. I think when they finally agreed to make the First Step Act retroactive, then I was allowed to actually submit a motion for reduction of sentence to my judge. Now, on my journey, Mr. Utley, my judge had just denied me and told me not to file again, right? That I was trying to use the back door, that my issue had no merit at all. Don't file anything in this, in my court anymore. And 9 months later, attorney that she's the attorney that helped me get out, she filed a petition for the motion for reduction of sentence, and the judge actually granted it, gave me 22 years. I had 18 and a half in, and I came home. Which was ironic about the whole situation is that the United States attorney who was opposing my reduction in the first filing, and this is on the docket, stated that, told the judge, well, I don't know how you want me to respond to him getting out of prison, because we think you should have granted the first petition that I filed on my own that he said had no merit, right? So so it was crazy. But when I got out of prison, the first thing that when I got out of prison, I was just really excited that, in my family was that, they never thought that I would ever see the light of day, right? So this is watching my kids grow up for 18 and a half years, pictures. You got 15 minutes on the phone. You're trying to parent 15 minutes, maybe once or twice a month. Sometimes you miss months because, it hurts to engage, right? It was the point you had to make a decision. And for the other guys, other guys that are in prison who don't make the other decision to become what they call penitentiary legends, it's very easy for you to pick up a knife, to wait till somebody, irritates you or makes you angry or does you an injustice, and act out. It's very easy. I'm talking about very easy for you to cut everybody off from the outside, because it hurts so much to be on the phone and hear the pain of your family, get the visits and see your family leave and see the hurt in your mom and dad's eyes and your children's eyes while you're in there, right? So it's very easy. And a lot of guys really just give up, For me, I just use that as fuel to keep going. So when I got out, I said, you know what, COVID hit, right? So, which was big for everybody. And I thought it was a joke, because I'm saying, this I'm at home. I'm locked down at home. This is sweet. So I took that time to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go get my paralegal certification. I was blessed by actually working with an attorney, Brittany Barnett. She was working with Kim Kardashian on stuff. So she let me intern with her, which was a great experience. And then she helped me kind of help me out the starting blocks. And I landed on my feet and began to do paralegal work, specifically working on sentencing reductions for people who actually qualify for it. And then while I was in the halfway house, a guy who was a returning citizen as well had told me, hey man, you gotta have translatable skills. You have more than one stream of income. And what, in prison, you do a lot of, it's a lot of conflict. So you do a lot of conflict resolution, right? Because in conflict, Mr. Utley, me and you are tied together. So if you get into an argument with somebody, me and you supposed to be together. Whatever you do, I had to follow you, right? That's just law, right? So you do a lot of conflict resolution. I try to talk you down, try to talk the other person down, and these are people who usually can't be talked down. So I say, you know what? Let me try to go get my mediation certification, and I took the course and I got it. I told the lady that from the National Association of Mediators, which I graduated from, about my story. She gave me an extra program for free. Um, and then from there, I said, you know what? Well, let me file my own nonprofit and see if I can take some of these skills that I have and help the community, because I ultimately believe that I was released to do exactly that. I don't think that I would have been released uh, to do anything else other than that. And I'm saying from a spiritual sense, because there were plenty of situations that I was not supposed to make it out of, or that while I was in prison, or that was detrimental to me being released, that I was really blessed about. So it doesn't make it didn't make it so and I was given all the tools. So by working with Brittany, gave me access to all her resources, right? So I'm like, wow, what? This is crazy, In the mediation, course, the lady gave me access to all her resources. So I'm saying, why not use this to help the community? I made the Tall Foundation. I wrote a book while I was in prison called The Art of Winning Litigation. That's what Tall stands for. And I wrote it for a guy who died in prison, who asked me to write the book before he died. And he asked me to write, and he was legally retarded, right? And I hate to say that word, but whatever the politically correct word for it. But he could, his great guy, just as he couldn't think past a certain point. And he was like, man, Eric, you explain the law so well. Can you please, like, if you ever get a chance, could you explain it for somebody like me? And I was like, I don't think I have a mastery, that much mastery over the law to be able to write something. So what I did, I just wrote my philosophy on how I went, how I won cases from a pro se perspective, which is pretty much the bottom of the totem pole. Like, nobody wants to hear from a pro se litigant, right? No, you tell a judge, some judge will laugh you out the courtroom, right? So just my approach, just my philosophy, when all the chips are stacked against you, and nobody thinks you should win, not even people that you have how do you present a claim to somebody that thinks you're a joke? So that's what the book, The Art of Winning Litigation is about. So when I wrote the book, I said, I'm gonna do a Tall Foundation doing the exact same thing, because it's people in the community that everybody writes off, right? So it's people in the community that can't afford a lawyer, right? And need one, can't afford mediation, is $100, $150 an hour. How could somebody afford a mediator to mediate something? So I felt like, maybe I should go into the community, God willing, and teach people these conflict resolution skills, provide, paralegal services for discount prices, where and offer the same resources of, that you would have if you had an attorney, so, or a mediator. So, since I came home, I have been making headway into actually helping people in the community in Washington, D.C. and in Harrisburg. Most recently, Mr. Utley, you came to the Boys and Girls Club on the other day, and the Living Well Youth Institute has subcontracted me to actually help a team that they're putting together to give people in Harrisburg, in the Harrisburg School District, resources and conflict resolution skills and mentorship, that I think is great. that should be kicking off this summer, and they look to really help families, single parents and families that are struggling, latchkey kids, the kids that come home because your mom and dad work all day long, so they come home, they got to take care, they got to be the parent, just to offer resources to them. And if you don't know the resources, the actual program goes out and looks for the resources that we think, oh, this is your situation, or you could benefit from these resources. Oh, here go the paperwork. We'll sit down and file it, fill it out with you. We'll get you all the help that you need. And I think just giving, you have to, they have to give to get. That's the law, right? You have to give to get. And I just try to give. I consider myself just so blessed for being out here and being able to be, even from when we first met, like on the steps of the federal building. I'm like, just to be able to be on your podcast is just a blessing. And I'm very grateful for everything that happened. Since I've been home. Another thing that I've gotten into, Mr. Utley, I don't know if you want to cut in. Another thing I've gotten into is my app. Yeah.
Yeah, I want you to tell people, explain your foundation so they can look it up.
Okay.
So we'll put it on, but so what is your foundation? Go very slow so people can.
Okay, so my foundation is the TAWL Foundation. That's TAWL Foundation. There's a landing page for it. There's also you can email us at you can email me at ERIC period TAWL foundation at gmail.com. And like I say, what we do is we offer services in the Harrisburg School District for conflict resolution. And if you have a loved one that's incarcerated, we look and see if they have an issue, if they don't have an issue in their case, to see if they where they're at also. So our foundation kind of helps people. To me, based on my own personal experiences, I kind of give back. Based on my own personal experiences, my skill set, I give back to the community.
Well, that's good. I got so many other things to ask you, but I wanted you to tell your story so that
Right.
people can see you had life, but you didn't
Right.
give up. You believed. And not only did you believe, you're out now and you're trying to do some things. And one of the things that you said, and people have to understand what you said. You said, hey, I made these decisions over here. I'm the one that made them, even though I didn't necessarily realize the impact it might have had on my mother, my father, my uncles, my cousins, and my children. And I hear that all the time because I tell people all the time, some actions has an impact all the way down the line, and people just think it's about them, and it's not. So I hope that people will look it up, TAWL Foundation.
Right.
They can Google it, I guess.
They can Google it, right.
They can Google it and reach out to you.
Well, to reach out to me, absolutely.
Now, there's something else that there was an article in the Washington paper about snake eyes
right.
and little luck roll in prison. So I'd like for you to tell the audience about that article. Talks about how you invented a dice game. I'm assuming it was a dice game in prison, and how
Yeah, so it's odd, because Cortland Malloy, he writes for the Washington Post, and that's who interviewed. He came up with that title. That was crazy. But actually, Mr. Utley, I'm a bit of a nerd, so we were playing Dungeons and Dragons in prison, right? Like it's like our own personal video games with no video games in there. And while we were in there, we make up these elaborate worlds, and you walk through them and you interact, and it's not all about a lot of the bad stuff you heard about. It's basically like social. It's like a video game, like any video game, right? So and in there, I created, when I became the person who actually ran the games, I had a casino in the game, and in the casino in the game, I had been in a dice game. So and the guys that were playing the game actually liked it, and then people that weren't even interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons, they wanted to participate in it. So I started working on it and working on it and working on it. And when I came home, what I did is just got I perfected the game. I got a provisional patent placed on it, which means that it's patent pending. The idea itself. And then what I did is I started working on an app, and the app is called the Kokoro Dice Game. It's in both app stores on Apple and Google iOS and Android. Right, it's in both stores. Um, and um, and what we're looking to do now is get it licensed, make it a board game, and continue improving it on the app, the aesthetics, until we get an MVP for the app. So so basically, I thought about something, and it was something very, and it's critical, right? To this whole thing. I thought about something somebody said to me one time, like, man, Eric, I believed in you when you didn't even believe in yourself, and I couldn't understand it. And it said, you never gave yourself a chance. And I thought about that for a long time while I was in prison. I never gave myself a chance. Like, what does that mean, right? And somebody tells you, hey, man, you never gave yourself a chance. And the terminology now is you bet on yourself, right? And how does that look when you bet on yourself, right? You have to believe in yourself when nobody else believes in you. And you take an idea, you think it all the way through, you write it out, you go through all the, get out a business plan, you give out, do your market research, you do everything, and then you say, you know what, even with all that, nothing is guaranteed, right? And you go out and you begin chasing your dream. So it started out as a hobby, and it became real over the period since I've been home, and I came home with October 16th, 2020. It became real, and then in January of 2023, it went into the app stores, and we're working on an MVP, which is basically the grand opening or the grand release of an app, for apps, So, I like to tell that story about, whether you like dice games or not, but I'm real big on ideas, and I believe everybody has a great idea, but not a lot of people act on it, right? And I think from where I came from, right, and then coming back out, getting readjusted to the world, and saying, hey, I'm gonna take this time right now, to begin to, try to chase an idea, or bring an idea that I had, to the marketplace. I hope inspires people, because when people are inspired, it can help me continue doing it, because it's sometimes a dark and lonely road. That's filled with a lot of doubt, pitfalls. I know when you probably started your podcast, it was probably like, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but it turned out successful, right? And anybody starting any type of business, it's not as easy as people say that it is. However, it's very rewarding if you believe in yourself and you believe in your vision. So I'm hoping that the Washington Post article helps people, believe in themselves. Like, somebody said, I didn't really give myself a chance. I didn't really bet on myself. I believe people should do that.
Now, real quickly, the story's time is going so fast. Now,
Right.
the dice game, now you say, now, how can they get that again?
Okay, so so you can go right to www.kokorodicegame.com, or you can go to either App Store, the Apple Store, or Google Play, and you can put in Kokoro Dice Game, and download it. The MVP, which is mean like the grand rollout. So you guys who download it now in the App Store will be the pioneers of the game, basically playing the game. And then once we get feedback from everybody from the game, see what people want from it, what people are looking for, how we can improve on it, then we'll roll out an MVP and have a grand opening, and bless everybody that stuck with us during this growing process. So
time is flying so
right.
fast. In the next 2 or 3 minutes, what would you like the audience to hear from you So please.
Yeah. What I like people to hear from me is that community engagement to me is critical. You mentioned the Dred Scott decision. That's right up my alley, right? One of my greatest Thurgood Marshall was somebody that I really looked up to while I was incarcerated, right? Um, his story to me is phenomenal. But even in the Dred Scott decision is a lot of is a lot of you know you learn a lot from it, right? It's a person that was free and he was arguing I should sue this person for false slavery because if I go back into if I live free and I go back into an enslaved state, then I'm gonna be then I'm a slave again, right? And that's false enslavement. I'm a free man, and just the whole thing about that. The same thing with community engagement. If we lull ourselves into this this thought that the next person to do it, somebody else will come around and do it. We don't want to engage with the next person, and a lot of that has I guess we could talk another hour about how a lot of that has been to me, instituted or implemented or in our community where we don't trust one another. But what I think is most important for the future, especially of minorities, is that we begin to again all over again socially engage with each other and help one another up by our own bootstraps. I think it's a different time. I think that right now that is the key. It's definitely something I'm passionate about doing. Helping people who can't help themselves, because I was a person that really couldn't really help himself. And it took a lot of people in my corner and a lot of breaks and a lot of blessings, a lot of answered prayers for me to be right here talking to you guys. So I just want people to know not to give up on themselves. And that community engagement to me is one of the most critical points to improving not only your life, but your lifestyle and to becoming successful.
I wanted the audience to hear what you had to say, and that's why I have this program. I have this program, and I try to bring people on to tell their story.
Right.
Some are exciting, some may be boring to other people, but the
Right.
point that we tell our own story.
Right.
Because too often our stories are not told. And
Right.
if you look at news, for the most part, a lot of it's negative. But if it
Right.
is positive, but if it's positive, it's still only a 1 minute or 2 minutes.
Right.
But I want to bring people on to give them hope, dream, and vision. Because if somebody hopefully sees this program, that will give them hope. That will inspire them. Or they can tell someone who may be incarcerated,
Right.
hope is still there.
Hope is here. Right. Absolutely.
Good. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm going to have you back
Thank
on
you,
again.
man. Okay, great.
I know we only touched the surface. I know we haven't touched the surface.
Right.
But I just want people to know that I tell people this all the time. There are bumps in the road, but we don't have to let that bump define who we are. And
Absolutely.
I think that you are a model of that because you, like you said, you could have said, I got life in prison. I ain't got nowhere to go. I'll just sit there. But you had hope.
Right.
You had vision. And you kept saying, I can do this. And then not only did you help yourself, but you help other people. Because one of the things I did hear about you is that, you were paralegal and even though you weren't a lawyer, but you were like the jailhouse lawyer because you were able to interpret law for them. Because a lot of times people go because they don't have the best lawyers. They may not understand the judicial system. And that's why sometimes I think I'm going to eventually have a program on plea bargaining because sometimes we plea out because it's easier.
Right.
You may have not committed the crime because I have a lot of stories where people saying, hey, if I go to trial, I'm gonna get 20 years, but if I plea bargain, I'm gonna do 10, even though I didn't do it.
Right. Yeah.
So we don't really understand the judicial system. I've never thought that the judicial system was always just, but I find it ironical now that we've always questioned that the justice really had blinders on. And now I'm coming to look at things that we've said a long time. Now
Right.
people are saying it about other people. All of a sudden, I'll just use this. There are those people who thinks that the former president is not getting equal justice. But
Right.
we've always known that we didn't always get equal justice. And
Right.
one of the things that has helped us is that with cameras and taking videos, we've always told the story and nobody believed the story. But now we've filmed the story and it tells the story itself. So I
Right.
want to thank you again.
Thank you for having me on.
Looking forward for you working with me. So
Okay.
he's
All right,
saying
Mr.
keep hope alive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And I hope
All right.
you learned something out of this tonight, because I did.
Right.
You're
Thank you for
somebody
joining the
yourself.
Richard Utley Show. Thank you for joining the Richard Utley Show on The Voice 17104. We will be here on The Voice 17104 every first and third Tuesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Once again, thanks for viewing. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Richard Utley, and we welcome your questions and or comments.